I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan, one that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. As we move along in 2020, Sports Stories is counting on our watchers and listeners to support us by subscribing and leaving reviews on YouTube or wherever you listen. Today we have a highly unique and highly successful guest, 21-year-old Evan Pittman, known as the world's strongest violinist. Evan, a top student Ivy Leaguer attending Brown University, has broke well over 100 powerlifting records in various age and weight divisions as an AAU athlete. He was an All-American as a springboard diver, and he's a highly accomplished musician, playing the violin across the country, entertaining for charitable occasions, as well as playing the national anthem at multiple Major League Baseball games. Last summer, Evan served as a lone intern for the Chief Executive Officer of the AT&T Corporation in Dallas. Let's see, by the time I was 21, during the time our 40th president, Ronald Wilson Reagan, was in office, I had wrapped up an athletic career at St. Bernard High School in Playa del Rey, California. I was an all-league honorable mention in football. Well, to be fair, I think the mention came from my mom. She was very supportive. In basketball, inspired by my favorite TV show, the critically acclaimed CBS drama The White Shadow, I averaged 9 points and 9 rebounds a game as a junior on the JV team. Whatever, I'd rather play on the JV than watch from the bench on the varsity. Okay. Well, as a high school graduate, my grades were just good enough, combined with my athletic success, to land a spot on a junior college basketball team where I almost played a game at College of the Desert in Palm Desert, California. In music, coming from a family that includes the Lennon sisters and the band Venice, by the age of 21, I had attended several concerts, including classic performances from the likes of the legendary bands like Styx and the Commodores. Weightlifting has been a central anchor of the Olympic Games since the modern Olympics were relaunched in 1896 under the direction of Baron Pierre de Coubertin of France, who founded the International Olympic Committee to serve as a governing body for the Games. The Amateur Athletic Union, an organization founded in 1888, was the primary force that led the Olympic movement in the United States. The AAU continues to provide programming for future Olympians in multiple sports, including the strength sports, which are powerlifting, feats of strength, and weightlifting. Evan Pittman, who set many of the 111 world records between the ages of 10 and 18 at the AAU Junior Olympic Games, is the only powerlifter to break national records in 9 different weight classes. Evan, like many great athletes, received the prestigious Joel Farrell Award for Outstanding Achievement in Sportsmanship at the AAU JO Games. Those kind of achievements include commitment and sacrifice, and also include levels of conditioning, both physical and moral. The legendary teacher and UCLA basketball coach John Wooden includes condition among the blocks that make up his iconic work, The Pyramid of Success.
Now we get to the third one, which I call the heart of the structure. And those are condition, skill, and team spirit. You must be conditioned for whatever you're doing. And I dare say some of you think when I speak of that I'm thinking only of physical condition, and I certainly am thinking of physical condition, but you cannot attain and maintain desirable physical condition unless it's preceded by mental and moral conditioning. So they're all important, and there's different types of conditioning. Whatever your profession is, you have to be conditioned for it. Even in the same profession, let's say a football player, if that can be considered a profession from what I've read, what some of those players are being paid, I guess it'll have to be considered a profession. But let's take football. A linebacker certainly is not conditioned the same way as a wide receiver is. There's different type of conditioning. And the coach, the teacher, he better be conditioned in a certain way too. But so there's different types of conditioning, and whatever it is, you must have physical condition, and it can be attained and maintained by just practice of moderation. It's no great sacrifice to practice moderation and do the things that will be more conducive to your physical condition, but you have to be mentally and morally strong to make that come about.
So throw in the academic success, the diving, and the music, and we at Sports Stories just had to get on a plane, leave LAX for PHX, and set up the equipment at the Happy Factory Fitness Gym in Phoenix, where a training session for AAU weightlifting officials was taking place, with our guest Evan Pittman helping with the training. There we were welcomed by Evan's mother, Rebecca Feaster Pittman, a former Air Force officer who was also leading the training.
Squat. Down, down, down. Good, good. Up. Right.
Sports Stories heard about Evan through his father, Hal Pittman, no slouch himself. Rear Admiral Pittman was a career naval officer that served in many roles around the world, among them as Deputy Chief of Staff for NATO International Security in Kabul, Afghanistan. Admiral Pittman, who has coordinated a sports diplomacy program in partnership with the U.S. Embassy and various sports federations, including the AAU, will be a guest on a future episode. Well, now that I've dropped Brown University, the Gipper, St. Bernard High School, my mom, the White Shadow, College of the Desert, the Lennon Sisters, Venice, Styx, the Commodores, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, Joel Farrell, Coach Wooden, Rebecca Pittman, and Rear Admiral Hal Pittman, you just sit back and let us do the heavy lifting for this interview from the Happy Factory Fitness Gym in Phoenix with the world's strongest violinist, Evan Pittman. So Evan, so I saw, your different accomplishments and so forth, and it was interesting to me. And then doing a little research, found out how you kind of came towards powerlifting,
Yes.
which was it's through Taekwondo.
Yes.
So
correct.
so tell me a little bit about just being involved in sports when you're young and so forth.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about how I kind of got first involved in powerlifting. So when I was really little, I watched a lot of martial arts movies, and so I was like,
right?
I really
Okay.
want to do that. I was like a little 6 or 7-year-old kid,
Sure.
and so I started Taekwondo. I was doing it kind of recreationally, and then I got started doing more and more. I started doing the sparring. I started doing a lot of national competitions in the Taekwondo. I was getting really, really good, and my dad came home from one of his deployments and said, you probably should start lifting so you can kick people harder when you're sparring. And I said, sure, that sounds great. So then I started doing the powerlifting, and then my dad realized, wow, he's like doing really, really good lifts. He's lifting a lot of weight for his age and for his particular body weight. I wonder how much he's doing compared to how the other kids are that are actually competing in powerlifting. And he saw how I was outlifting basically all of them. And so then I entered in my first powerlifting competition in 2009, and I've been doing it ever since.
Nice. Now, was that first one an AAU one?
It was an AAU meet.
Nice.
Yes. It was
I
in
like
Des Moines,
that.
Iowa, Junior Olympics.
I love when the AAU is there for you, to build those bridges.
Absolutely.
It's such an important thing for organizations to do is to provide those opportunities, right? Because, there's a lot of places where young people can find themselves, and AAU has done that for such a long time. What other sports did you enjoy when you were young?
Yeah, of course. So another sport that I really did a lot and I enjoyed a lot when I was younger was soccer. I ended it up when we left Virginia. When I left Virginia and we moved to Florida, they were doing soccer in the same season, so it was in the fall. But Tampa in September and October, it's still really freaking hot.
No doubt.
So it was pretty unbearable trying to do soccer. So I kind of moved out of that and just did the Taekwondo, and then I did the powerlifting. But then as I got into middle school, I actually started diving, doing springboard diving.
Tell me a little bit about that. How come? What appealed to you about diving?
Well, honestly, my mom kind of mentioned it to me. I dabbled a little bit in it when I was in Virginia, but not like a lot. But when we moved to Florida, my mom was like, you could just dive into a cold pool of water, or you could be running on the field doing soccer. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do the diving instead. So that's kind of how I moved from soccer into diving.
There's things like that.
Yeah.
Do you find that the balance and some of the techniques you learned from powerlifting helped you in diving at all?
I think it did help me a little bit in diving.
It's kind of a singular, focus on that one moment.
Absolutely. It's you need a lot of strength to be able to get off the board and jump really, really high, and to be able to do all those flips. I mean, it takes a lot of strength. You can't just have nothing. So.
Yeah. So I think I was looking at one of them. They're talking about you were particularly good at the initial ascent because you're strong enough with your body to be able to start making those. Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that something that kind of sets you apart from other divers?
I think for like certain levels of diving, like obviously with like the really, really, really high level springboard divers, they're going to be they're going to be lifting a lot and doing a lot of things. But there were like instances where like I could just do really, really high jumps compared to everyone around me. So it was really, really interesting, really fun.
So now you're getting a little bit older, and there's a couple things you're dealing with. One is you're actually working out a lot of stuff, but you're moving a lot. And tell me a little bit about that, because like the audience that watches a lot of our stuff, they tend to do all kinds of sports, so they're not necessarily they don't necessarily know the military life and the kind of sacrifices it takes, but also the opportunities it presents to learn different. Meet different people, different parts of the country.
Right.
So what are some of the challenges, and then what are some of the upsides of moving?
Sure, absolutely. So I think I'll start with the challenges and then end on a good note. For me, the challenges for moving around so much was, having to make new friends. I'm like my dad, I'm like a pretty introverted person. My mom's the exact opposite. She's like a complete extrovert, but she loves, she loves talking and meeting new people. And for me, it's like, it kind of makes me a little anxious when I go into a room and I don't know anybody. So that's been kind of hard, but, I've kind of had to adjust, the way I approach people. And, my mom has always taught myself, you have to be really friendly, you have to be really nice to people in order to be able to make friends in new places. And for the most part, whenever I moved, there was, a huge military community there. So I was able to kind of come in and make new friends. However, when I moved to Phoenix, the summer before my sophomore year in high school, I moved into a community that wasn't super welcoming, and it was really, really challenging for me. But I was able to make friends in my sports, which was really, really helpful.
Isn't that though? That opens that opportunity, because right away, you get in and there's a bunch of people that are doing the same thing you are.
Absolutely.
And I was a long time coach and athletic director. And although my game was sports, I would always talk to parents about, it doesn't matter, it could be the band, it could be in the arts,
right?
But belonging to that group and everybody having that common interest,
right? You had a
nice.
Shared commonality, which I think is really good and really good for bonding, and it gives you like a similarity, gives you like something that you can both connect on, which is really important.
I found that interesting when you were talking about on the other podcast too, that you found that too outside of your school, through what's it called,
Musicians on Call.
Yeah, Musicians on Call.
Absolutely.
As well as other things. So let's back up a little bit. You started playing the violin when you were 6?
Yeah, 6 years old.
Look out. And did you gravitate towards that, or did...
So it's funny. So when I was in elementary school, all the really cool kids were playing the violin. Sounds really nerdy, but that's honestly just what it was. And I was like, Mom, I really, really, really wanted to play. I really want to play the violin. All the popular kids are doing the violin. I need to do this. And apparently, I didn't know this at the time, but my aunt, and she'll openly admit this, played the violin really, really badly.
Okay.
And so she'll even say it. She's like, I was a terrible violinist. And so my mom, when she first heard that I wanted to do the violin, she was like, absolutely not. She completely ignored me for like a year. She was like, not doing it. And then finally I was like, Mom, they're going to run out of violins at the violin store. You have to get me a violin. And so she's like,
all the kids are doing.
Yeah, that's what all the kids are doing. And she's like, oh, fine, I'll just go over.
That's some school.
Absolutely. And so finally my mom took me over, I got the violin, I was able to get lessons, and my mom's like, wow, you actually sound pretty decent. And then, she got finally, towards the end, she really, really got on me about practicing, like, you need to practice, and like almost like a tiger mom. And so she got really into it. And even now, like, if she needs something to kind of, make her feel a little bit better for whatever reason, she's like, Evan, can you play the violin for me? Just, make me feel better.
Nice.
And I do it, and it makes her feel happy, and it makes me feel happy as well, kind of hearing the music. And it's not to sound like narcissistic, like, oh, I just love hearing myself play the violin, but it's like very calming. That's what
music does. If you had it to do over again, maybe you pick the accordion. Evan, just play the accordion for me. I went to a music festival one time. It was in Milwaukee, and it was an accordion festival.
Wow.
And
that was very interesting.
It was very interesting. I had a good time. Yes, I couldn't believe that. Now, there was something interesting. I think your pop said, let's go for 100. records to break, right? And you would have been maybe 10 or whatever. And just 100 because it sounded good, or did that sound imposing to you? What did you think when you went 100? Jeez.
Well, for me, at first, I was like, oh, 100. That's a big number. Like, oh, I've broken 100 world records. But then I found out that no one had. The initial goal was to try to break 100 world records before I turned 18.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I got injured. I believe it was the summer of 2016, if I remember correctly. I dislocated my finger, which doesn't sound like that major of an injury, but when you're doing benches and squats and deadlifts, like, it completely immobilizes you. So I was like out of the gym for a while trying to get my finger rehabilitated, but then I figured I can still break 100 world records before I graduate high school, which just hadn't been accomplished either. So I was, I trained a lot, went to a lot of meets. I had to really get back into the game after I went through rehab for my finger, and I was able to do it, and it's one of my greatest accomplishments.
Heck yeah, that is. Man, you're motoring right through it. Do you keep like a tally board up in your... You're like,
something like that. Something like that.
That's awesome. Or you just kept counting the medals.
I lost count of the medals that I have. I have a whole wall, and
it was an important time, obviously, in our country after 9/11. But it was also interesting because my boy at the time was like, I think he was 9 or 10, and he had won AAU medals for beach volleyball, and I think he had won like 4 or 5. And it was right, and then that week, and we went down to the beach, and we took a picture with him with his medals on. And I didn't realize until we got the photo back that in the background, the flag was at half staff. And then when I looked at it, because I didn't look at that picture for a long time, I realized that was like, oh, that was right around 9/11.
Wow.
But, it was kind of a cool picture. But the reason I say that is because I just recently looked at it. And I thought, wow, this is kind of interesting. Because I looked at, there was one picture with a lot of your display.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what my boy and my girl did. Let's put those up. Those are nice medals, huh?
Yeah, they are
Got to
pretty nice
give the
medals.
AAU some props on those medals. They're good.
They're good medals. They know what they're doing on that one. I'll
do.
give them that.
They do. And I understand you're a Joel Farrell Award winner.
Yes.
Do you know what that is? That award? Because I know you've won a lot of awards. You might be forgetting them. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoy the part of the AAU that remembers, right? And so that Joel Farrell was a significant volunteer, with the AAU. And the fact that, somebody like yourself, a young man, and he lived well before you, can still remember that. And I like how they do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really good to remember the people before us who really were able to contribute a lot. There's so many different, people, like, for example, in powerlifting that have contributed a lot to the sport. And doing the best to realize that there were people before us who allowed us to be able to do these certain types of things. I think it's really good to be able to acknowledge that and to recognize those people in the best of ways.
No doubt about it. Tell me a little bit about the Bob Woodruff Foundation.
So I believe it was someone that my dad worked with, right? And I wanted to be. It's a foundation that kind of serves to help veterans, and I wanted to do. I wanted to use my powerlifting in a way not just to like benefit myself, but to also give back to the community. In this particular instance, the military community.
Yeah, and where does that come from? I mean, I know it's easy to say from your parents, but where does that your desire to want to give back, to do something bigger than yourself, that it's not just about you? That's very unique for somebody that's young.
Well, for me, my family, I know you said it's not just for my family, but it's been so ingrained in me, for, people who are given much is expected. I believe that if it weren't for the fact that I had such a supportive community and even like a supportive country, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm able to do right now. So like the least I can do, for example, that's why I do Musicians on Call. I shouldn't just be playing the violin for myself or for, concerto competitions so I can make myself better. I should be sharing my talents with the people around me. I think it's really important. I take it very seriously. It's something that I've always been told as a child that I should be giving back. Yeah. So that's why I continue doing it, and that's why I, hold it very dear to my heart.
I think it's also a trait that you see in a lot of successful people. I know where I kind of picked up on that was I'm a big John Wooden fan. Do you know who John Wooden was? He was a legendary UCLA basketball coach.
Okay.
Right? But prior to that, I think of him more as a great teacher.
Right.
And but he always talks often about, a complete day is not lived until you've done something for somebody else. And if you want to, really be truly happy for yourself, do for others. And it sounds really simple, but it's not. It's it's making that extra effort, but then that seems to increase like your ability to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine, do you like enjoy playing in front of people that are also like going, wow, look at this. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Isn't that
absolutely.
great?
I mean, I'll give you a great example. Like, every time I go to the, PCH, Phoenix Children's Hospital, and I play musicians on call over there, or if I play at the Veterans Home here in Phoenix, and I also play at the VA out in Boston, which is near where I go to college, just to be able to see the smile on people's faces. A lot of these, especially the patients are going through a lot of pain, or, the families of these patients are, going through a lot, and it's a really difficult time for them. So just to be able to, make their day a little bit brighter, it really tickles my heart. And I can't tell you how many times I've had like people come to me like after I've played and, crying and saying, thank you so much. You really like brightened my day. And it's made me pretty emotional a few times, and I'm not a super emotional person. So it really does mean a lot.
That's what music can do. Do you find similarities between how you prepare either to perform in music or in athletics? Do you have like a similar kind of mental approach or a mantra you might use? Or
Absolutely.
You do?
Yeah, my parents would probably say this is definitely the truth, is that what I'll do is I'll just get my headphones on and I'll listen to really hardcore rap music to kind of get me like pumped up.
Who do you like?
Like, 21 Savage, or, even like Cardi B, or like Young Thug, or Tyga, like really good rappers.
So you'll be pumping that?
I'll be pumped up, and I'll be
you'll
listening to that. My mom's like, are you really sure it's like a good idea to be like listening to like hardcore rap music before you're getting ready to do violin?
Vivaldi, honey?
I know, right? That's what she always says. But I'm like, no, I need something that's gonna like get me amped up and be able to like make me feel confident about what I'm getting ready to do.
She probably wants you to throw in a little Biggie or Tupac from back in the day.
Yeah, Tupac, he's
Snoop.
Yeah, the OG.
No, me and your mom are about the same age, so we know who we're talking about. We know who we're talking about. And then what about like the same for either diving or you're going to go play for a group? Do you have a similar process of getting your head right?
Yeah. So when I was doing diving competitions, I would often do the same thing. Like, even, before the competition, I would listen to music, and then, after I started, because, a lot of times there's 6 dives, 11 dives in a whole diving competition, in between dives, I would, put my headphones on, listen to music. That's kind of, I think, for me, the best way to kind of get into the zone and to really stay focused is by, kind of tuning everything out, not, hearing any of the negativity or even the positivity, because I don't want to get my, ego inflated too much, and then thinking I don't want to get overconfident, but I don't want to
stay on point.
If I'm doing badly, I don't want to get like down on myself. So I just try to stay as consistent as possible.
I like it. Tell me a little bit about the transition in trying to get to school. Like you're in your country day, I think.
I was, yeah.
Right, and you're looking to get into a good school, and that's got to be. I remember with both of my kids. Luckily, my boy was a recruited athlete, so that helped him a little bit.
Right.
But my daughter, it's a stressful time.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And then you're also juggling some sports.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's some real life training. And by the time you get to college, it's easy breezy, huh?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, being at Brown is like, it's definitely a challenge. Like, but it's a challenge in different ways. Like my academics, I thought, since I went to a prep school here in Arizona, that like college was going to be like a complete breeze for me, and that it would be really easy. No, not at all. It's like all AP classes junior year, every single semester at Brown University. I cannot describe it in any other way. But I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, even before I came.
So that Ivy League's tough, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Do they name all their schools after a color?
No,
just Brown. Okay.
Just Brown. Brown is unique in that way, but it's a lot of work. I mean, even before I came home, I had finals period until the 17th or 18th of December, and the week and a half before, I flew back to Arizona from an island. I was getting around an average 4 or 5 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
I would go into my room.
Easy, huh?
Yeah, it's difficult, and I would go to the library, literally spend sometimes 10, 11, 12 hours in the library. That was very common for me it's usually pretty common for me during finals period.
Was it more difficult to get your workouts in once you got to college because you weren't
Absolutely.
like in a regular routine?
Absolutely.
What did you do? Did you because I would imagine that's how your body's wired,
Mm-hmm.
like your body's calling for that. You want to do those workouts.
Right.
Did you find a way
Yeah, so recently what I've been doing is this is going to sound kind of, my dad would be totally opposed to me saying this.
He'll never see this.
He'll never see this at all, absolutely. But I'll actually go into the gym at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night and get a lift in, and you would be surprised how full the gym is at Brown at 10 p.m. on a Friday night. You think everyone would be out, hanging out with their friends, but no, it's like packed at 10 p.m. And thankfully the gym at Brown closes at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I've been to the gym since 1 a.m.
I would be happy to know my kid was doing that instead of out on the crazy streets of Providence.
Providence is pretty crazy. You would think that's just a small little town, but it gets
Providence,
wild.
That's pretty interesting that they keep those hours. That's good that they're allowing that now. Do people trip out on you in the gym because how much you lift, or
what do you mean by trip out?
Because you look like you're in shape, but you don't look like you're going to throw up the weight I've read that you put up. Because I would imagine your technique's fantastic. I bet people are like, what the heck, did he just put 2 more 45s on that?
It's funny that you say that. So there's like a section of the gym, the gym at Brown is kind of like divided by what different types of people. So like one section of the gym, where all like the bars, like the free weights are, you have like the really buff like football like guys, and then you have like the medium like machine stuff that less buff people go to, but still like in shape, and then you have like the people that are like maybe just starting to get into the gym, and they're doing easier exercises, or they're working on the treadmill, and I'm always like on the free weight side, and all these guys are like so freaking jacked and so freaking huge, and I'm like here, and they're like looking at me like, what is this kid even doing here? Like, aren't you supposed to be on the other side of the gym? Like, don't you know the invisible line that's
here
here
to clean up?
Right, I know. And then I'll put on some weight, and they're like, okay, well, what's your story? I've had a couple guys come up to me like, what's your story like? And then I'm like, world's strongest violinist.
I would trip out too. That's hilarious. Evan, I could put the 45s on. Solid, huh? Marley, don't laugh. See how she laughs at that? That's so rude. Some good day, 45s and 10s. I'm right there.
Gotta start somewhere.
Hey, I was really interested in you being a CEO with being an intern with the CEO of AT&T.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Crazy town.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Pretty...
Would you have to answer the phone for him?
I did a lot of stuff for him. I was, doing different errands. I was doing a lot of different types of projects.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I can't go too in depth about what the work I was doing, but it was definitely a pretty demanding job. But thankfully, the people that I was working with, like the team that I was with, they were, some of the kindest, most, progressive people that I've ever met.
Nice.
They were from all over the country, so I was able to meet people.
Other
from all
interns
places.
Or people that were already working?
People that were already working, full-time employees.
Okay.
I was in the particular office that I was working in, so I was working in in an office that was completely separate from the rest of the floor. And you had to get a key card to kind of get into it. It was completely different, and I was working with people that were in their 30s. And so at first I was really intimidated. I'm like, look at me, I'm this 21-year-old kid.
Sure.
All these people are have kids, and am I gonna be able to relate to them? But it was really fun, and they were really encouraging. They were really nice, really friendly, and it was a very pleasant experience.
Did you were you able to use some of the lessons that you'd learned from athletics and see how that helped you approach the business world?
Yeah, absolutely. It actually might sound like a bit of a cliche, but I absolutely had. I absolutely did. I'm sorry. For example, doing things that I was assigned certain tasks that I was working with Power BI to look at consumer
What's
data.
that?
It's I'm trying to describe it. It's a software that is made by Microsoft, and you can data visualization basically. You can make graphs or different types of things on it. It's a little you have to have there's some kind of technique to using it.
I don't want you to give away a trade secret. Okay.
So I had to use consumer data and put it into Power BI, which is something that I was completely unfamiliar with.
Okay.
And I would have been I can't do this. Can you give me something else? But with my athletics,
Sure.
there were so many times where I was I can't do this. But I just had to do it, and I tried my best, and I usually was able to do it pretty well. And so I did the same thing with that particular project. I mean, that was just one of many projects, but with that particular project.
And I would imagine your focus is you're on point, right?
Absolutely.
Because you've had to do difficult things, whether that's breaking a weightlifting record or
Absolutely.
a triple axel? Is that a thing? Or did I take that from my skating?
Yeah, from figure skating.
I did. I just mixed up my sports. But yeah, I would imagine, your focus could be like locked in and you'd be like, okay.
Absolutely.
Let's get after this.
Even when I was in the office, so there was a whole group of desks that were all next to each other. They were at this one really, really big table, and everyone had their own computer or their own monitor. For me, I actually had to move my computer from that particular shared working space, and I moved it kind of to a separate table on the side, just so that I could focus and be really ingrained in what I was doing and really concentrating on it. That doesn't mean that I wasn't interacting with my coworkers or I wasn't talking with my peers.
Go to the headphones and some hard rap, and you're like, "Yo,
that's exactly what I did." See, you already getting online with things.
Nice. No, what a great experience. Are you now? Do you have a different internship lined up for?
Yes. So I'm going to be working at Wells Fargo in their investment banking division. They just got a new office at Hudson Yards in Manhattan. So I'm going to be doing that.
Nice.
Working on the 63rd floor. So I'm pretty pumped about it.
That's like in Midtown. I
Midtown
think.
Manhattan. Yeah.
It is. It's fantastic. So the Sullivan Award.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with that award that the AAU gives out? Goes to Nation Shop. So I'm part of that committee, and I get to go to New York and stay each year. And man, it's just such a trip, the energy that city provides.
I know. Honestly, every time I go to New York, I'm just like, this place is so how do people live in New York City full time? Right? It's so overwhelming. I couldn't imagine doing it.
I saw a good documentary. It was talked about the Dutch, how they founded that area, and where other places were colonized and had a lot of religious reasons for it. The Dutch were all about the trade and making a buck, and somehow that DNA has just stayed in New York. And so when you're in that city, you can just feel it, man. It's moving.
Oh yeah, it's literally this city that never sleeps. I remember going on a train with a friend of mine at 3:30 in the morning, and it was completely packed.
The
with
city's
people.
still moving, yeah.
And I was like, it's 3:30. I know it was a Saturday night, I guess early Sunday morning, but I'm like, it's 3:30 a.m. What are people doing out and about? A really good movie that I actually just saw. A quick aside that really I think shows the energy of the city is the movie The Joker. Even though it's supposedly supposed to be Gotham, you really feel the energy of what New York is like.
And that was set in the 80s.
The late 80s, early 90s.
Those were my day, baby. Yeah, Joker. But that movie's heavy, huh?
It was really heavy, but I think it really shows that there's a huge portion of this population in this country that has kind of been forgotten. A lot of people
underserved
that are dealing underserved. There's one scene in the movie that I think is really well. They're talking about cutting mental health programs in the city, and the social worker, she was telling the person, Joaquin Phoenix or the Joker, she's like, the city doesn't care about people like you or people like me.
Yeah.
And I thought
that was me, which you're right.
It was really powerful.
That hit me too. Wow. Because when she was like, it's not just you. It's like, this is my job.
This is my job. She's out of a job. So
yeah.
Sorry, that was just a quick aside.
No, that was a good aside. Yeah, you're right. I like the way that did kind of translate to this. So Evan, here we are. You've set all these weightlifting records. You've been All-American diver, right? And a classic violin player.
Yes, sir.
Performing in these areas. And you're at Ivy League school, interning at AT&T tech business, and now going on to the finance. So when are you going to run for emperor of the world? I want to be there. No, you're really you're on this terrific path. And can you see beyond, being 21, or are you just staying in the moment? What are you looking... can you see where you want to be maybe later in life, or are you just going to let it play?
I think I'm gonna let it play. I definitely do want to pursue my education. I'm thinking about maybe getting an MBA or getting a PhD later in life. I'm still deciding that. If you would have asked me this time last year what I was going to be doing in the summer of 2020 for an internship, I would have told you I have no freaking idea what I'm going to be doing. I don't know where I'm going to be, but thankfully I was able to secure something, and it's with a group of people. I've met everyone that's going to be on my team in Wells Fargo for this upcoming summer for my internship. I've met some of the other interns that I'll be working with. They're a great group of people. They're a great team. I feel like they're very supportive. They've been very helpful for everything that I've done. So I think for me, it's going forward, it's making sure that I'm with the right group of people in the right culture setting. There've been a few times in my life so far where I've been in a setting, whether that be work or whether it be with sports, where I really didn't didn't feel like it was a conducive, culture for, like, it wasn't a collegial culture.
Sure.
And it was not very pleasant or enjoyable for me. So just making sure that I'm with the right people and that I'm making a good impact on my community is just going to be the most important thing.
Nice. I could see you doing that. I could see you do that. And I particularly like seeing you wearing the shield there.
Thank you.
And giving back to the sport that you came up through.
Absolutely.
When we run our big events, I always tell everybody it's our day to protect, honor, and defend the shield, the AAU. And that's kind of like, something we want to do in life, too.
Right.
We want to protect the right things to do.
Absolutely.
And you're doing that.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being
My
on
pleasure.
the show, man. Right on. Congratulations on all your accomplishments, too.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Sports Story staff includes Marley Rice, Teresa Dolan, Bob McCall, Michael Lennon, Sienna Lennon, Brad Lawson, Christine Jimbo, and Jake Downey.
Check it out, Buck!